here in Korea. And currently it is, let's see, what do we got? 12:22 in the afternoon. Just finished some lunch, and so what we're going to end up doing is just kind of looking around. And right outside the military base, Camp Humphreys, they're setting up for a festival. So if you want to see up tents, and then all the way, and see they're setting up tents as well. So it's going to be today's Thursday here in Korea, so it's yesterday in the United States if you're watching this. So with that, this festival is going to go on. I think they're starting to set up now. And by the looks of it, it looks like you might have a couple of vendors doing food tonight, but definitely it'll be full swing tomorrow and Saturday as well. I'm not sure if we'll go through the weekend or not. I remember seeing the name of the festival. I don't know if it's the One Heart Festival, but it's going to be a hot and humid festival. So we got that going on. Current temperature is 90 degrees, that's why I'm in the shade. And pretty soon I'm going to be, it's 90. Let's see what we got for humidity. Yeah, the high today is supposed to be 92, and then humidity isn't too bad. I'm kind of surprised. Currently, it's at 46. Wow. The other day it was like 84% humidity and 77 degrees. So this is kind of odd. The high will be for humidity. I don't know, it's hard to tell. So, but we got that going on. But other than that, we're just kind of chilling out and relaxing. I had a burger at one of the local places, which was all right. People ask me, right outside of Camp Humphreys, Korea, you have fast food places for, the GI and the contractors and stuff like that. And it ends up, people ask me, well, how much is, food out in the Ville? So, like you got a number of places, like you got that place over there, and there are restaurants and stuff. There's a lot of Middle Eastern restaurants serving burgers, heroes, gyros, whatever, kebabs, things like that. But generally for like burger and fries, you're probably, for burger, fries, and a can of Coke or soda, you're going to end up with about 20,000 won, which ends up being about, depending on the exchange rate, it's probably going to be around $14, $15. So that's kind of thing. It used to be back in the day that you could get some pretty good food off post and it wouldn't be expensive. Of course, way back in those days, everything was less expensive. So yeah, but other than that, just kind of chilling out. We're going to enjoy the festival. Of course, for those people who don't know, my daughter's stationed at Camp Humphreys. So that makes it good. She'll be here for, 2-3 years, something like that, 2 years. I think 3 years maybe. I'm not sure. That new memorandum came down talking about how they're extending tours of people coming to Korea. So we got that going on. I'm not sure how that affects her, but at least 2 years. And then, so she should get the weekend off. And today is what, the 19th, the Juneteenth, I think it is. So I think there's a lot of people have today off. So if you can see in the reflection, there's a bunch of military people that are walking by and stuff like that. So it seems like they got a 4-day weekend. So probably have Friday off as well, and then Saturday and Sunday. So the Ville should be popping tonight. It should be full. And especially on those 4-day weekends, it ends up that they can get a little crazy at times. So, but yeah, it's getting to the point of where it's hot and humid, but humidity today isn't too bad. like I said, it's only 46, which I'm really amazed, being it's 90 degrees. But if you're, we're talking about June, last couple of weeks of June is kind of bearable. You start getting into July, and definitely August is the worst month for heat and humidity here. So if I do anything, it's going to be inside. But even the gym I go to on post, since I'm a retiree, I get to go to frequent that quite often. But yeah, it is like a sauna in that place. So buildings on post are supposed to have be set at a certain level, and it can't be within out of range of more 3 degrees or something like that. But yeah, good luck with that in the gym. In the second floor gym, yeah, you'll get high 80s in the gym, and it's like working out in the sauna. So ends up it's a crazy little thing. So, but yeah, other than that, kind of enjoying it. The wife's out getting some stuff done. She went out with some family, so I'm left unsupervised. So we got that going on. But yeah, we might walk around and kind of show you some of the tents. They're pretty much all empty. But earlier they ended up putting up the tents and everything, and now you got a few vendors that are getting in there. I used the gym in Japan. It was impossible for me in the summer. Yeah, I'm right there with you. When we were in Oahu, it ends up, we went to the Marine base on Oahu where I can't remember the name of the base. But since we lived in Aiea, that was the closest military base, and they had a gym. We would go there, and even during the summer in Hawaii, man, crazy. Because they didn't really do air conditioners. They just kind of left the, what is that? Ka'anohe? Yeah. So it was a really good gym. Surprised more people didn't use it. Of course, being retired, we were there. Most people are working, but even during lunch, and we would go early morning or lunchtime. But yeah, I was kind of surprised the gym wasn't used as much versus compared to the gym here. Like at Zeckler Station here, go to the gym there, and that works out pretty good. So a lot of people will frequent that. Of course, you have military that'll go there in the morning for PT at times, but there seems to be a lot of service members, contractors, family that will end up using that. And even the big super gym, because they got multiple gyms on this post. We went to the super gym a couple of times. It's huge and it's big. They have a swimming pool, but the way it's organized for weights and stuff like that, it just didn't make sense. So obviously the super gym building was meant for something else. And if it was designed to be a gym, whoever designed it was woefully inexperienced in my opinion. But Zeckler gym is really good. So I enjoy that, and it's smaller. Equipment is laid out exactly where it needs to be. It makes sense, and so it's that's our go-to gym though. But you get people that will go there in the morning, and then we try to go there about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. We'll spend a couple hours there, and then clean up, and then we'll go get coffee or do lunch or something like that. So it ends up it's a pretty good deal. But during lunch, a lot of people go to the gym during lunch hours. So you'll get contractors, you'll get service members, Katusas, all that stuff. It'll get pretty crowded about 11:30. So that's why I try to go earlier, about 8, 8:30ish, 9, and then 9 at the latest, because then that means we'll do about 2 hours, shower, shave, all that stuff, and then, we go off and have lunch or coffee or whatever. So, but yeah, it's a good thing. Being retired military is cool, especially if you have access to a military base, because the prices for gyms. Of course, in Hawaii, you have like Planet Fitness. When our daughter moved from Aiea, we lived in Aiea, and then we moved down to Waikiki in a condo. There was a Planet Fitness that was right across the street, so we paid to do that for a few months. and it was good. It's just crowded, super crowded, all the time. I was just kind of amazed at how crowded that those gyms get on the island. It makes you wonder, what do these people do for work, because you see them there all the time. So yeah, but yeah, them military gyms, you can't beat those, especially since it's free. Some people have asked me, what are the price of gyms on the Korean economy? And I checked out a few local gyms, like one that's across the street from our apartment complex. And they wanted like 80, 70, $80. I can't remember how much it was in won, but it was around 70 or $80, which was insane. And minimal equipment, a lot of machines, some free weights, but just paled in comparison to what we could get on post, even at the small Zeckler gym. So, yeah, that's definitely a benefit of having that military retirement and access to post. So, oh, another thing that happened, I got a notification on my phone. It ends up with all the crazy stuff going on with Iran and Israel and Gaza and whatever else, and that whole pot being stirred over there. They raised the threat con level. So the threat con level went from alpha to bravo over here in the Pacific, and so that means elevated awareness, alertness, whatever. Not because of anything going around on here, but because of the stuff over there. And what do we see? Sometime I want to visit the area. I'm an expat living in Seoul. Oh, I couldn't read the rest of that. Yeah, it's pretty good. Seoul is, everybody wants to go to Seoul, but you start going out to some of the other areas, and down here, it's an interesting little place. Of course, everything in Korea, you've got little places and pockets of restaurants and tourist attractions. So that stuff, no matter where you go, you're going to find something cool. But yeah, in the Anjungri area, which is Camp Humphreys Post, is just right down. You walk about 5 minutes that way, it's right down there. So you get a lot of expats, you get a lot of retirees, military service members, contractors, and everything that goes around with that. So, yeah, it's a pretty mixed, like I was talking about in my other video, talking about diversity. There's a lot of diversity around here. So you have Americans, you have a lot of Filipinos, you have a lot of, definitely a lot of Filipinos here. And then noticed more Chinese, and then Middle Eastern, people of Middle Eastern descent. Like I've met some people from Pakistan and other places that come and work in like these kebab restaurants and stuff like that. So there's a lot different than what it was when I left here and retired when I left here in 2002. So, and then I retired in 05 in the United States. But yeah, in 2002, you didn't see a lot of foreigners in Korea aside from Americans. You did have, at one time, there was a lot of Russians that were in Korea for entertainment purposes and stuff. So, bar girls and stuff like that. It switched from Koreans to Russians, and there was a lot of Russians. And then, when we came back now, you don't see a lot of Russians at all. So you see a lot of Filipino workers and stuff like that. But I haven't been back inside a bar here in the Ville since, I don't know. I don't think we've ever been in a. No, we did. We went to the VFW here, and it's just a bunch of old vets getting drunk and loud and obnoxious, and it was like, yeah, I'm not into that. So, yeah, we don't really like the loud, obnoxious stuff anymore. We're not club people. We like it to where you can be able to hear yourself think and carry on a conversation, stuff like that. So, and then, some people say, we're getting old. Well, you're go to bed early. Not so much. Generally, I'll get up at like 5:30 every day, and that's because of my back. I still got chronic pain. So I can't sleep more than like 7, 8 hours. Otherwise, my back gets real bad. Then I have to move around and walk. But usually we'll stay up, and about 10 or 11 is kind of when we go to bed. It says, I worked on base that is no longer in Pusan called Camp Hialeah. Yeah, I remember that. Camp Hialeah. Yeah, there's a lot of bases that they closed here in Korea. So, matter of fact, I used to work at, it was up in Chuncheon, Camp Page. That was it, Camp Page. I worked up there for a couple of years, and it ends up that that has been all closed down. So we actually took a trip up there, drove up there to Camp Page and Chuncheon, and that was all gone. So we wanted to see what was the, how the city was, if we remembered anything, or if I remembered anything. I wasn't married at the time, and I could remember some terrain features, but the whole area of Camp Page was walled off. It was fenced in, and they were going to redo it, but they had a couple of issues. One, they had contaminated waste, hazardous waste that was on the base, and so that posed a problem. And then there's also like an agricultural or no historical significance of something, but because of the hazardous waste, they couldn't do anything with that, and so it's pretty much just at a standstill. So you can see where Camp Page was, but it's not there anymore. Same thing, like I was also stationed up at Camp Garyon / Camp Pelham, which was, we used to do rotations up on the DMZ, Warrior Base and stuff. So we were stationed at Camp Garyon, and then that's all gone away. And then a lot of other smaller bases. For those people that don't know, Yongsan used to be in Seoul, Korea, the Dragon Hill Lodge and Itaewon, the big party place. Everybody would go to Itaewon to party. All of that moved down. So it went from Yongsan, and there had been talk about moving Yongsan down here to Camp Humphreys for, good Lord, it was like 10, 15 years or more. There was always that talk and that rumor that they were going to draw down and move everything further south. And they finally did. So that's why Camp Humphreys is now, the United Nations Command, USFK Command, all of that's down here. All the bigwigs are here and everything. And all of that has left Seoul. So I think the only thing left is like Dragon Hill Lodge, and there's not much left there. And for the people that have been to Dragon Hill Lodge, it used to be the place to go. Now it's run down. Nobody, talked to some people, and they were really disappointed at the quality of the Dragon Hill Lodge. So, but, it really wasn't us. That was the thing of saying, hey, let's go to the Dragon Hill Lodge and spend the night. That just wasn't us. But other than that, yeah, we've been down to Pusan. We took trips. We've been to Sokcho, which is up northeast, and Soroksan Mountains and stuff like that. And then we went to the beach. The beaches up there, mountains are really beautiful. Cable cars and all that. Highly recommend that if you can do that. That was like a 2-3 hour drive. I think it was about a 3-hour drive. Go up there, do some hiking, do the cable cars, see some great landscape, and then stop and get some coffee and all that stuff. So we've done that. But pretty much everything else has just been, we've just been chilling out. We've been to a few places. We went down to Pusan a couple times, and then of course we've been to Seoul, done that. But really everything else has just been kind of locally around here. Get out some local restaurants, some Hanu beef places. So that's, matter of fact, we just went to a great Hanu beef place, which is kind of like the Japanese Wagyu beef. But in my opinion, it's better. A little biased, a little bit. So that was really good. And so that's going to be a keeper on our list of places to go. And prices weren't too bad either. So, yeah, that was really good. But pretty much we got our routine. We go to the gym 3 days a week. We'll hit the open air market, which is right down the street from here. So, we'll hit that on days that end in 3 and 8. So they call it the 3/8 market. So we get a lot of our produce and stuff at the markets and stuff like that. But during the hot summers, last summer, especially during August, July and August, there was like a month and a half, almost 2 months, where we didn't go to the open air market because the heat was terrible. Heat was terrible, humidity was terrible. But this year, we found that we could order groceries on Coupon, which is an online app. So you can order stuff, kind of like an Amazon type thing. And that ended up awesome deals, even better deals than what we would get at the 3/8 market. So we will be doing that during the hot, oppressive summers here in Korea, where the temperature gets in the 90s and the humidity is in 100%. So yeah, we're not going to suffer like we did last year. Or I should say the year before. The year before we went to the open air market and just you'd lose 5 pounds of sweat, just going to the market and walking around and picking up stuff. So that was just kind of crazy. Busan summoners are very rough, even 30 years ago. Yeah. And we haven't been to the military bases, like the Navy base and stuff like that down in Busan. We never went to one of those. We would just go to Hyundai Beach, the big beaches down there. And it was good. They had some good Hanu beef places there. But this local place, which is like maybe 10, 15 minutes away, blew that out of the water. And then you get a bunch of side dishes and stuff here. So it seems like Pyeongtaek and stuff like that have better. Some places in Korea, they'll give you a ton of side dishes like kimchi and tofu and this and that, little greens and veggies and all that stuff. I lost weight every time I visit Seoul, walking all the time. Yeah. Yeah, and do it during the summer. It's like walking in a sauna. So that's another reason why people are definitely a lot not as fat as Americans are. Because of the diet, and they do a lot of walking. So, and we do a lot of walking as well. It ends up, we, either after dinner, in the evenings, we'll go out for a walk, we'll go out for coffee and stuff like that, or if the weather's not too bad, open air market. So getting from like where the open air market is, we kind of do the route, and by the time we go back, it's about a mile, just over a mile. So, and then other little stores and everything are great walkability. Because the way Korea came about, you had towns and then you had stores and farms, and everything was kind of within walking distance. And then as those places got bigger, then you just added on more stores and stuff like that. Unfortunately, they didn't add a lot of parking. So yeah, that's about the only thing about Korea that is really, really different from the United States. United States, you can go anywhere there's a restaurant, a store. Usually there's parking. In a lot of cities here in Korea, towns anyway, it's hard to find parking. So, and then there's paid parking. Sometimes you can get, parking free for like the first 30, 45 minutes or so. There's places like that. But like, what is it? Starfield Mall, which is close to here. They've got underground parking, and that's free, so that's a good place to go. Air conditioning is, it's so-so. They don't really turn on the AC until it gets oppressively hot, so probably even now it's just, But until it gets really, really bad, the air conditioner won't be going. Same thing in hospitals as well. Parking spaces are so narrow. Yes, they are. And especially in smaller places. Even in Pyeongtaek, which is kind of big. So you have Seoul, you have Suwon, you have Pyeongtaek, Daegu, Busan. Even as you go through the bigger cities, it's hard to find parking. And a lot of people park on the streets. But parking is crazy. It's just hard to find parking spots. So it's kind of like, build this big city, but we're not going to build parking lots until much later. So, you got a country that has 50 million people and then a ton of buildings and a ton of restaurants and a ton of everything else. But it's like they didn't plan for, let's do more parking garages for street parking. So you'll have a lot of streets that are, one way this way and one way the other way. And then people will park on the side. So basically make a 2-lane road into 1 lane because everybody's parked on the sides of the road. So, you'll be doing that country, let somebody go through, and then, as soon as they go, then you can go through because of all the parking and everything. So, yeah, it's a thing. So, which seems to be my biggest thing as well, in that when it's like, okay, well, let's go somewhere. Let's see, Vegas was 115. I almost walked in large stores. Wow, 115. That is crazy. We went to Vegas a couple times. Once I went there as a speaker for a real estate seminar thing. So we had a bunch of us investment real estate people that we had been online, and this was back in the day before they had FaceTime and stuff. But I was one of the speaker on this group of people who did real estate investing. So we went there from that, and then there was another time we went and just vacation there. So, but yeah, I remember the heat. And my grandparents lived in San Bernardino, and we would go to Vegas and we go to Laughlin and stuff like that. But yeah, that 115, that's crazy. And then of course going out to, what was the military base? 29 Palms, with the Marines and doing all that stuff, which was absolutely insane. And then where's the Fort Hunter Liggett down in California, go play in the box, and that was like 100, 110 degrees, 112 I think was the hottest we ever had down there. I think there was like 7 or 8 days, 10 days or something that was above 110, and we're in full battle rattle, full BDUs, plate carrier, helmets, all of that stuff. It was horrible. Just crazy. So I'm glad I'm retired. Good Lord, that would suck. Which brings me, being retired, and you see soldiers in all their gear and everything. It's just like, you see it in dead summer, and, I'm sweating in shorts and a tank top, and that they're dying. I run hot anyway, so which is just absolutely crazy. But yeah, crazy. I feel sorry for them, but you got to put in your time, right? I did my time; they got to do their time. And if you hang around long enough, you'll hit retirement. So I think what we could do is walk around a little bit and see if we can do this walk and talk thing. So. My legs are so sore. You see, they got all the tents back there. All those are being set up. Looks like they got the misters are going to be, you can see there, she's putting in the misters to cool everything off. So, but yeah, pretty good. I'm really surprised it's not as humid as what I thought it was going to be. So, but all of this whole street is going to be nothing but vendors. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting little festival. Got a lot of Korean food, beer, soju, drinks, all that stuff. So you'll have a good mix of Koreans and Americans and everybody else, which is kind of fun. Think of it like a street fair. So, not bad. We got some people here that are going through and setting everything up. So you can see that. So they were getting ready, starting to get the food court people and setting up. So fun stuff. But and then drinks, got some bar stuff going on. So, are you in Anjingni? Yes, I am. Anjingni on Rodeo Drive. So, it is right outside of Camp Humphreys. And, oh man, they're already, you can see that. They're all setting up. Sweet! Yes, it is. And there's Korean food's like awesome. So, and it's a little pricey these days, but with the exchange rate, it's not too bad. And yeah, it ends up, it's some good stuff. So, got some of the other stores. Still got Duke's Taylor. Still got the Casbah's, one of those places. Cleaned up a lot more than when I was here in like the 90s. So, like I said, a lot of halal restaurants, money exchange places. They're doing a bunch of work on that entryway, so I'm not going to go down there. But, yeah, not bad. But, yeah, definitely all of these places, like this burger place, that's a halal thing. Got some Philippine restaurants down in that area. More kebab stuff, and you can see there. So, and for that, you're gonna spend about, for a burger, fries, and a Coke, you're gonna spend about, oh, that was close. You're gonna spend about $15 US dollar, about 20,000 won or so is what that comes out to. So, but now that heat is kicking. A little Ferris wheel ride stuff for the kidlings. And you can see a bunch of restaurants. A lot I've never been to. But then they've got this over here, like a big open air area, and got a big stage and everything. So they'll have like, I'll show you. Yeah, they cleaned all this off. So they just sprayed all this down to get everything. So they got a big stage. And then this whole area around here is where they have like open air concerts. So they're setting up a bunch of stuff. So that'll be kind of good. So, and usually there's no problems. Pretty much everybody, Koreans, Americans, all the people that come down here have a good time. They might drink a little bit, you know. But for the most part, everybody's pretty cool. Nobody gets in trouble for the most part. And just have a good time and eat. And works out pretty good. And we've got more. We got more. You can see there. More tents. But a lot more shops, restaurants, stuff like that. All of that comes out pretty good. But yeah, this whole street will be, you know, nothing but these tents with all kinds of food. Pork, beef, chicken, veggies, all kinds of stuff. Seafood. They'll do pig roasts here. They'll have a ton of food. So, which is kind of good. Thing is, there's so much food. And it gets a little bit pricey. But, you know, it's a festival. You have a good time. And that's kind of worth it. So, need to work on my arms. I'm tired of holding up this phone. You can see they're running in the electrical and everything. But, and for those of you, if you remember Duffy's Club from way back in the day, that was a place to go. And some places have gone. Stay Lounge, I think that's an old one. Casbah is still here. Eagles Club is still here. So for those of you who remember the Eagles Club, that's still here in a new building. So everybody's getting ready. A lot of convenience stores, all of that going around. Tattoo shops, parlors, a lot of those, even though it's illegal here in Korea, per se, because let's see, it says, appreciate the walkabout town. Yeah, it's definitely cool. Just been busy, and when it gets too hot, yeah, I won't be doing this. So it just gets so oppressively hot, it's like, nah, I'm not going to do it. So, but yeah, other than that, and there's a lot of stores like that. So that means that that place is for rent. There's a lot of places that are, a lot of places closed down. So because of the economy and the way things are going, it ends up that it's kind of problematic at times. So if you have a business going, it better be like a good business. And even just the short time that we've been here, it ends up, we've seen a lot of businesses and restaurants open, and then, a few months later, they're gone. So you really, really have to have good clientele to be able to survive. And places that are like on the main drag there in the Ville, you're going to pay a pretty penny for rent. So, and this is another area where there's more bars and restaurants and grills, stuff like that. You can see craft beer, whiskey, tattoo, cigar lounge, the sugar bar, insomnia club, all these places that I've never been to. And of course a bunch of places for rent because they closed down. So it's yeah, you really have to have some good clientele to stay up here. See, if we have cold beer, as cold as your ex's heart. Wow. So, but it's kind of fun to walk around and see what's going on and all the changes. We got some other stuff here. So like you got Pub 210, we've got that. Kim's Cook. I haven't been down that way. But there, guess we'll go. Fishing. They got some fishing tours that go out. Kim's Cook Barbecue. All you can food, lunch 20,000, dinner 22,000. Person who doesn't have a meal forbids entrance. So usually, the interesting thing about Korea is that you'll have a lot of restaurants that you have to order one meal per person, or if you're two people, you have to buy two meals. So otherwise, and it's hard because some places they require it. So if you go there by yourself, they might turn you away. So, and here we've got, okay, so we got International Food Market. A lot of halal places have popped up here. A lot of halal places. So you got that going on. But other than that, it's still hot. Good thing I put on sunscreen. So we'll have to try that place, see how that is. 22,000 won. Normally, like with restaurants that are closer to the military base, they'll use a lower quality meat. And so, you know, they think, oh, they show all these good pictures of meat, you know, some prime cuts, and it looks really good. But then when you actually eat it, it's like, not so good. It's like rough cuts. You know, a lot of gristle, a lot of fat. I don't mind fat, but it has to be in the proper balance and everything. So, but a lot of these places we haven't been to. So, still got the old motel. I remember that place. So, and we even, what do we got up here? Kind of walk around, see what we got. But still a lot of buildings, a lot of stuff. Nice to see the Ville. Hey. Hello. So, yeah, I was stationed here a long time ago, and then we ended up, I'd been here a couple times, and so I've got to see Camp Humphreys grow and get big. Donuts? Oh, okay, Cosmic Donuts. That's new. That's recently new. And then we got more restaurants. I haven't been down here. You can see we got back there some restaurants. Afro Palace. Here we got Sam Sushi, guacamole, coffee shops, things like that. And we've got sushi, Vietnamese and Thai food. So we got going there. Guinness. It's been a minute since I had a Guinness. That looks like it's closed down. Yeah, a lot of places like that. So, a lot of places closed down. So, I remember when coming out to the Ville, man, it would be packed. But recently, of course, being back, you don't have that as much. But then again, we have more things like FaceTime and stuff like that, whereas before in Korea, you know, you didn't do that. You didn't have cell phones. You didn't have FaceTime. You know, you had writing letters back home, and it took 2 weeks to get to the States, 2 or 3 weeks, and then you had to wait a response. And so I think that drove a lot of people. To drink. So let me switch hands here. So yeah, but that's about it. A lot of stuff going on in the Ville. Some good restaurants. I haven't been to any pho places yet. My wife likes pho. We have been here to the teriyaki box, which has got some real good food. We enjoyed that. Almighty's has got some good chicken sticks and stuff. That is pretty good. I've seen a fair amount of people here at the Big Slice, which is, I'm going to try that one of these days, so we'll see how that goes. But then you got other stores like GameStop. Here we are, we just did a big circle. And we're right back, kind of right back in the mix of things. So, but yeah, that's what we got going on. And then further down there's another street that parallels this one, and you'll have some restaurants and stuff like that. So all of that stuff is pretty good. So But yeah, fun stuff. Fun stuff. So yeah, we might actually have some of these vendors serving food tonight, but they will definitely be at it tomorrow, especially with today being Juneteenth and all that. So, but yeah, not bad. I mean, as you can see, a lot of tents, and that'll be an interesting little spectacle. So get some food, we'll get a couple things, maybe some chicken, maybe some Korean food, Korean pancakes or whatever, potato pancakes, those are always good. Maybe have a beer, 1 or 2 beers, and kind of walk everything off, sweat it all out. So, but yeah, for the most part, it's a good little place. And so it'll probably be like, well, you end up, are you that close to the Ville to where you got the clubs and the bars and everything, but set. But man, it's hot. But people ask, and it's like, well, do you live so close to the bars and everything that you hear the bars in the place that we live? And thankfully, no, because our apartment complex is still, I'd say, about a mile, 3/4 of a mile or more away from here, and it ends up to where you run out of this street, and then it ends up, you just kind of, it's like a whole nother world. So it stops being the bars and the fast food restaurants and stuff that are around the military base, and then it starts getting into, I would say, like the normal Korean places. So which is pretty good, because in the apartment that we live in, let's see if the apartment that we live in, it ends up that it's far enough away that you have quiet and peace, and you can't hear any of the stuff that goes around the Ville and the bars at night and stuff like that. So, which is nice, it's probably not as good as, it's definitely not as good as Asan Technical Valley, which is about 20 minutes away. That's a newer city, and like e.g. the one apartment complex, everything's brand new, sidewalks are awesome, more Koreans. It's not like this mix of definitely a military town type of village right off the military base, but there's a lot of foreigners that live there, and military service members and their families and contractors, but it's definitely a lot nicer. So if people are interested in visiting and thinking about moving or living here in Korea, this is one area. But Asan Technical Valley is, even though there's foreigners, it's basically a newer city. So it works out really well. Matter of fact, we were thinking about buying an apartment and moving over there and then renting this place out, but we recently changed our mind. So we like our 4-bedroom, 2-bath. I got my hobby room, my office. My wife has got, we got a spare bedroom that she uses right now. And as soon as my daughter leaves, we'll change it from a spare bedroom, and we'll change that and make it for kind of like a wife's hobby room. So she'll be doing that there. But we're kind of happy with a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. We thought, well, we'll move into a 3-2 in Asan. And then it was like, yeah, you know what? We're just kind of happy where we're at. So we're going to stick with our 4-bedroom, 2-bath. And if we do buy another apartment, it will be probably in Asan Technical Valley. It'll be a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and we'll just rent that out. And yeah, we won't make as much money, but it'll still be good. And so if the wife and I don't make it, And if I pass off before the wife, or we don't, our plan is to die together at 85 in our sleep. So, but if that doesn't happen and I go first, then she will have both of these apartments. And then if she wanted to downsize, she could move over there to the 3-bedroom, 2-bath, which would be more manageable. And then she could rent out this place and, you know, make a decent amount of money on it. You know, have some more income coming in besides, you know, the other stuff that we have. So, but I think we just got used to the size of the 4-bedroom, 2-bath, which is like 1,600 square feet, which is nice. And we've got enough room. We got enough room for, you know, all our stuff, our different hobbies and all that. And yeah, I don't think downsizing just isn't in the cards for us right now, especially with all our hobbies and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. So yeah, we made the decision to not move, which is kind of nice, you know, because we've been moving for ever and a day, and then it ends up it just it's nice to be able to be finally settled down and everything. What does it say? Where do you live now? We live in Onjungri, but it's further down, and we're in the brownstone apartments, so which are pretty nice. We got a screaming deal. Originally, we didn't. We kind of knew we had a couple of apartments we were looking at. We were looking at EG the one, and then we were looking around here. But we liked being here because it was closer to the military base. And so when we found brownstone, we said we wanted a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. But then we ran across a great deal on a 4-bedroom too, which was way outside of our budget. Which, you know, it wouldn't kill us. But it was on sale, and it was like a $60,000 discount. Yeah, so in other words, motivated sellers, they really needed the money, and not a lot of people were buying at that time. So me doing real estate in the past, it was like, I got to jump on this deal. This is going to be a good deal. So we jumped on that, and then we said, well, then we'll save our nickels and dimes, and then we'll move over to Asan. But it ends up, we guess we're not moving, so that works out well. But other than that, I think that's going to be it. It's about 1:15 right now, 91 degrees. High is going to be 92, so I think I'm going to hoof it home. So, yeah, we'll kind of call this a day, and we'll just kind of walk down a bit, and when we get down to the end of the week, we'll call it a day and be done. Yeah, 91, high is going to be 92, but the humidity's not too bad. It's actually probably around 50% humidity, which is, I'm really surprised that it's not worse. So let me see what the humidity is. 42% humidity, so that's not bad at all. So this is really, really bearable compared to other times where it'll be in the 90s, high 90s, and then the humidity you'll get into 80s, 90s. That's when it's just straight up miserable. So, but I can definitely tell when it gets into 70% humidity or higher, especially when it hits 80, I start sweating bullets. So, big guy, 260 pounds, yeah, you're gonna sweat. So, this is a good place to eat, this place here, which is, however you pronounce that. They got some pretty decent food. Problem is, it's not a large quantity of food, but it's good. So, you know, you got to deal with that. Let's see. And then the further So we ran out of tents, and then now we're starting to get more into the you still get some restaurants. You get a few bars here, but not too many. And then the further you go closer to our apartment complex, you get less and less of that until eventually you don't have any bars, just normal coffee shops and stuff like that. I'm so glad I put on my sunscreen. Definitely when I get home, I gotta take a shower, that's for sure. So. That's the street where they'll have the open air market, so the 3/8 market. Got some other shops. This is a real good bakery. They got some real good baked goods, fresh. They bake everything there, so that's really good. So. But other than that, yeah, this is not bad. Just hot. And it's going to get hotter and more humid. So definitely get my vitamin D for today. Really need to work on my arms. Getting tired of holding this phone up. But I'm doing this for you, so like and subscribe. I would appreciate that. There's some other places that are pretty good. Like across the street, you can see that sushi, snow pea. That is some good sushi and everything. Do I like Korea better than the States? Yeah, I think I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't have retired here. I've never felt unsafe in Korea. And of course, a good part of that is, being a foreigner, people tend to leave you alone. But being retired and a foreigner, it's even doubly that because you're retired and everybody else is still working. And we don't really hang around people our age because we're a little bit different. The people that are retired, there's basically nobody who's retired our age, except for maybe some expats. But as far as like Koreans, they'll work until their 60s, mid 60s, almost 70, and then they'll retire. So trying to find people like us is rare. So, but yeah, I think a big thing was expenses are half of what we were paying in the United States. And even though we had our house paid off in the United States, it ended up expenses and everything else we save a huge amount of money being here. Like I said, we'll save about half. So, which is nice. And we bought our apartment outright. So we just have like a little apartment housing fee, which isn't much, every month. Property tax is, in US dollars, is maybe $250 a year for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. Let's see, phone is half, internet is less than half. And we got all that bundled together. Like I said, crime is next to nothing here. And if you want to take a look, this is our apartment complex, the brownstone. So, and it is hot. So, and it's super bright out, so it's hard to see any comments if you leave a comment. So if I don't feel like I'm snubbing you or anything like that, it's just really bright and it's hard to see the little small comment box. But from where we were out in the Ville to where we are right now, there's a whole different feel, a whole different vibe. So, and then of course the apartment complex is really nice. Underground parking. So we got that going on. And then there are some, we got a few restaurants over here, which is pretty good. But for the most part, everything is nice. You know, you'll have some farming, open fields. You'll have some rice paddies that are close by. Over here, we got like a coffee shop. They don't make as good a coffee or lattes as I make, but you know, hey, it is what it is. They got some sushi places over here, some other restaurants. So yeah, not bad. But man, is it hot. Some people have asked in our apartment complex, the brownstone, and there's a lot of brownstone apartments throughout Korea. So this isn't like the only one. It's kind of like a chain. But for like our brownstone apartment, the 4-bedroom, 2-bath, the exact same size, exact same layout, you know, down to the millimeter. If you go up in Seoul and go to brownstone, you can pay, you know, we paid what, $250K, something like that. Somebody left a comment. I used to live there. It's there. Appreciate your village tour. Yeah, you're welcome. But this same brownstone apartment, a 4-bedroom, 2-bath up in Seoul, you could get into $1 million for the same size. So people say, oh, you can't live in Korea. Depends on where you live. You know, the further away from the big cities, you can still get some pretty comparable housing, but the prices aren't going to be as bad. But in this place, when we bought this, the cool thing was that, I wish it was cool, but the cool thing is we got it on a discount, had a motivated seller, and then as soon as we bought it, a number of months later, the prices of the apartments went up. So we've already made money on paper. Always make money when you buy. So now we've got the more manufactured landscaping. It's got security here, which is just guys that walk around and, you know, it's just officer presence. But they do all the landscaping here. They just finished repainting all the buildings. So we got that going on. You know, they got little kids' playgrounds and stuff. This is a small one. So further over here, they've got a bigger one. But they got a walking trail that goes around the apartment complex, which is nice, especially early morning or in the evening. And it's kind of like gated, I guess you could say. Not anybody can go in and park, you know. They don't have assigned parking, but you have to register your car. So, but yeah, nice, definitely nice. And eventually they're going to have the fountains going as well. So I got a good big kids playground here, and then all along here will be some fountains. They'll be filled up with water. So that'll be really, really nice. And those fountains will run for about a month and a half maybe. And then after that, they'll shut them. But still, the landscaping is nice. I think what I'll end up doing is